Welcome, everybody. This is the Delaware County Commissioners meeting. It's Monday, November 20th. Time is 9:05. Let's open the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Brandy.
Thank you, Ed. Could you call the roll, please?
Mr. King.
Here.
Ms. Reagan.
Present.
Mr. Henry.
Here. Thank you. First on the agenda is appointments. We have an appointment to the public defenders.
Yes,
Dan
Dan
Gibson.
He's been highly recommended to fill that position.
I'll make the motion to approve Dan Gibson.
Second.
I have a motion to approve Dan Gibson and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. King.
Yes.
Ms. Reagan.
Yes.
Mr. Henry.
Yes.
Is that a 4-year term or 1 year?
We'll check it later.
Thank you.
Next is the Airport Authority. We have a name of Steve Slavin.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion to approve that one in a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. King.
Yes.
Ms. Reagan.
Yes.
Mr. Henry.
I'd like to say that,
Yes.
he fills, Dr. Alexander, who
Alexander,
passed
yeah.
away, who was very instrumental on that committee for quite a few years.
He did a great
and
job too.
Will be missed.
He will be.
He will do a nice job.
All right, next appointment, we have the Animal Control Board, Nikki Kirby.
She comes with a background of loving and helping animals, and I move that we appoint Nikki Kirby.
Ours doesn't have to be a veterinarian, right?
No,
Okay.
she just fills
Just want to make sure.
one. And again, she replaces Mr. Turner, who has done a wonderful job for 9 years serving us.
He has.
Jim Turner.
I'll second it.
He will be missed.
We have a motion for the Animal Control Board and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. King.
Yes.
Ms. Reagan.
Yes.
Mr. Henry.
Yes. Next, we have the approval of the minutes, the Commissioners meeting November 6, 2023.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the minutes and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. King.
Yes.
Ms. Reagan.
Yes.
Mr. Henry.
Yes. Contracts and agreements for approval, renewal of Thomas Reuter contract. Emily?
Good morning, Commissioners. Emily Anderson, Court Administrator. It's Thompson Reuters contract. This is one of the law books that the judges have. We renew every 2 or 3 years, but I've actually got this on a 5-year renewal, which saved us a little bit more money. I've already budgeted this in next year's budget. So I just need signatures, and I've got this marked for you so you don't have to guess where to sign.
Okay. What's your pleasure?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve that contract and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. King.
Here, you
Yes.
can just give it to
Ms.
me.
Reagan.
Just one.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Reagan.
Yes.
Mr. Henry.
Yes.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Emily. Next, we have ordinance number 2023-026, being a resolution of approval to amend the text of the Delaware County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance regarding solar energy. This is actually the second reading. The first, or the introduction, and the public hearing occurred on November 2nd.
Yeah.
One of the issues I have with the solar ordinance is the acreage. I've talked to a lot of people about the acreage requirement. What I would like to do, Denise, I'd like to put in the minutes that if we reach 6,800 acres, which would be 4%, that the commissioners would then at that time send it back to the planning commission for a hearing and an amendment of that part of that ordinance.
Okay.
Danielle, and with that being placed in there, it doesn't have to go back to the planning commission?
Not today, so if you do it just in the minutes and then you adopt that ordinance today, it stands as adopted and as presented. And then you start that process back over when you decide to review it. And at any time, the plan commission or you guys can move to change that ordinance, bring it back
Can you
up.
speak up a little bit, Larry?
Sorry. Do you want me to say that all again?
Yes, please.
All right, so if you just put that in the minutes today, then it is adopted as it was presented to you. At any time, you or the plan commission can decide to bring that ordinance back up to review it for changes. But today it would be adopted as presented.
With that stated in there that it will not go over 7,000 acres, not unless it is presented back to the commissioners.
So the ordinance won't say that unless you send it back to the plan commission, but your minutes will say the 6,800 acres. And then as soon as you're notified of that 6,800 acres, then you can bring it back up to send it back to the plan commission.
Cause I really don't, honestly, I really don't wanna see it over 4%. 5%.
I hate to interrupt, nobody can hear anything. There's a severe echo coming, we got people with their phones playing, we can't hear anything back here. Nobody knows anything that's even been said yet.
Can everybody hear me now?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, we'll do it this way.
James, the problem is the echo back there.
That's fine. Believe me, I got a loud enough voice, I can do it.
So let's start over. What I asked was that if we get to 6,800 acres, which would be over 4%, then the commissioners review it to send it back to the planning commission. Everybody hear me?
Did everybody understand the question that I asked Danielle? Did she respond back? What I asked Danielle, if we pass the resolution today, can they go over the 6,800 acres as of today? If we pass that and it is in the minutes, because one of the things that I'm afraid that will happen is if we send it back to the planning commission, everybody's gonna be calling everybody else.
No one can hear you out in the hallway. Not one person. There's like 16 people.
On Facebook?
So, and Mark said that.
On Facebook, and
Nothing that's being said by you guys is being heard.
and then on,
We can't even hear you in the room. And it's not, they turned off their stuff. I don't
Is that
know.
up?
Yeah.
I'm trying to be as loud as I can in here for everybody. One of my,
Come in?
I don't think we can because
uh,
one of my things is if we pass and we adopt this ordinance today, I do not want to go over 4%, is where I'm at today. Everything else in that ordinance, I am fine with, and I've talked to a lot of people the past week and on the phone. Everything else, I'm fine with. It was just the acreage. Now, if we can adopt this thing today and not go over the 6,800 acres without it coming back to the commissioners, I would be fine with it. But I am stuck like at 4%. I don't want to see it go over 4%. There's where I'm at right now. The setbacks, I'm fine with. Everything else that I've read in here, and believe me, people, I've read everything, went through it. I'm good with everything in ordinance except for the acreage. But I also don't want to see it go back to the planning commission and be picked apart and we start this all over again. But I do not want to go over 6,800 acres. So that's my thing. A solar company cannot come in and go over the 6,800 acres, not unless they come to us.
so do we know right now how many have signed up, what the total acreage is?
Here's one of my things. And I was able to get a signed contract. I will not say who gave me the signed contract, but this stuff started in 2020. I knew nothing about it until like July of 2021, when they were filling out stuff for their, tax abatements. So, and believe me, I've got the tax abatement forms for one of them, and some people saying there's like 2 farmers and stuff, but I have like 8 people or more that's listed on the tax abatement on the ground, so there was more than that. But I've went through this thing and over it and over it. My only thing is the acreage. And I just want to make sure that if we pass it and adopt it today, we can actually go back at a later point in time and put the 4% in. But I actually today don't want to see it go over the 4%, the 6,800 acres. So with it being in the minutes, I'm asking you, can one of them come in and say, well, it's in your ordinance that we can go, so we're going here? Because I don't want it being picked apart. That's my only.
Brandy, can you take the microphone, please?
Because I know the phone calls and emails that I've had and all this stuff, and I don't wanna keep carrying this on,
Yeah.
but I also
So-
wanna make it good.
So I feel like if a company would come in and make application, we would be notified by the planning commission that this potentially could go over that acreage, correct?
Correct. Now, to James's point of making it 4% right now, I can let Cynthia explain that a little bit better. But I think it would need to, if that's a change that you guys want to make, if it goes back to the plan commission and they accept that change, then we're good on everything else. But I would like Cynthia to come
Thank
up and
you.
address that and maybe explain it
Absolutely.
better, okay? Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Cynthia Bowen. I'm with Rundell, Ernstberger and Associates, and I was hired to help the Plan Commission put this ordinance together. So what they have done is they base that acreage, initially, when they put the acreage in, they based it off the number of farmland acreage, 4%, and they increased it to 4%. So unless you change that to 6,800 acres and put that cap on there, it will, the percentage could increase if the number of farm acres increase. So in order to keep that from happening, you need to use the number of 6,800 as the cap. Because we put the 4% in here, that number can change. So you would need to change it to the 6,800 if that's what you want to cap it at.
What happened to the 3,500 that the committee suggested?
So
With this, hang on, sir.
Okay, hold on, Leonard. And
So the Plan Commission changed that number at their meeting
3,500?
and increased it.
Well, the committee recommended the 3,500.
No, yes, you're right.
Yes,
The
correct,
they
committee
did.
recommended 3,500.
Correct, they did.
Yeah, and so they've studied it and we appreciate all the work that they did,
Mhm.
to fill people in. There were 3 people for, 3 people against, and 3 neutral people.
Mhm.
And I forget what the vote was to send it. But,
I have it. If you give me a moment.
Oh,
So the group did several calculations, but they used 175,000 acres of farming based on the census. 2% of 175,000 is 3,500. Somewhere close to 1,680 acres. That's the maximum size or total amount of acres devoted to solar farms is what they said. So, 2% of the 170,000 is 3,400 acres, and so they decided to use that as the maximum. So the vote ended up being, look here, because they ended up taking 3 votes on it. They imposed a 2% limit on the number, the total number of acres in the county that could be under panel. It was 5 people for it and 4 people against it.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
So I guess this is where we're at. I mean, we either we gotta do it now or we gotta do it later.
Well-
That's the bottom line.
I was gonna give a little speech before we got into making recommendations. And I do again thank the committee for spending 10 months looking it over, pros and cons. And, this has been a very hard decision to make. And I was gonna recommend that if we did any at all, we decrease it to see how it goes in our county, because to me, it is putting junk on good land, that it helps the community, but why do we have to be the ones to? Because we don't know what's gonna happen in 10, 20 years. It's such a new product to put out in the field. And the drainage, I'm always concerned about the drainage. How do you go in and repair something that's been out there and then underneath there's drainage issues? And I just don't think it's a good mix.
About how we came up with the 2%, that was not an arbitrary.
Can you go to the mic and state your
State your name. You'll be the only speaker since you was on that committee.
Thank you. My name's Tim Nickum. And I want to take a step back before we came up with a 2% cap on farmland. We were presented with information from the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission. And the information was backed up by a representative that we had come in from Hawthorne Solar. And in that information, we discovered that Delaware County's existing infrastructure would only allow for approximately 5,000 acres of panels to be built. That's all that could hook to the grid, 5,000 acres. So in an attempt to not just throw the county wide open to every acre that was available, that's where we compromised on the 2% number, which was 3,400 acres. So it was a very much of a discussed number. It would allow these facilities to come in, but it wouldn't just throw the county open to everything. And what I'm afraid is going to happen is if we go anything over these 5,000 acres, we will not only see applications for ground covered in solar panels, we will start having these companies come to us insisting that they must build battery storage parks. That's the next big battle that nobody wants to talk about. It's going to hit us like a ton of bricks. They're going to say, we can't make any money on these solar projects because we can't capture the energy when it's made. I already know people who have signed up their land to lease for batteries, and it's coming. And so anything that is over that amount is going to be wide open for the next big battle. So there was some rhyme and some reason and some real discussion, not just screw you, we don't want anything, I mean, that's really the behind the scenes
Thank you.
reason for that.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
letting
you.
me speak.
Well, and one of my points is, just like Mr. Nickum stated, is these companies come in, the battery that you're talking about, the battery stuff, I know nothing about, but you said people's already like talking about leasing and selling off their land.
I have already been
So-
contacted personally.
So people sign these leases and everything, and then they put it off on us to regulate it, to figure out setbacks. They put it on us to, acreage and all of that stuff, and we actually get nothing out of it, except tax revenue. Which I hate to say, tax revenue in this county is good, because we don't have enough really revenue to come in to pay like a lot of our employees, like our sheriff's deputies are underpaid, our highway guys are underpaid, even the people that work in here, everybody's underpaid. So tax dollars actually would be good here. And the money off of like the solar would actually be good here. But one of the things that I would look at, and I've told everybody, is if it's in the Gaston area, take those tax revenue dollars and put it in the Gaston area and help the folks in Gaston. Help them with the water projects, help them with the wastewater projects, because I know they want to run the wastewater from the school all the way down, but they don't have the money to do it. You know, so wherever the funding goes, put it back where it's supposed to be. And if they're out in Gaston, put it there. There's where I'm at, but I also don't want to have my whole county with solar panels. That's the reason why I was talking about the 6,800 acres. You know, I'm ready to pass this thing, to be honest with you, because we've been dealing with it since 2021. And we probably would have had it all taken care of it if, you know, Marta wouldn't have passed away.
COVID was another issue.
Yeah, but I just don't want a company coming in here thinking that they can build all over the place. That's the reason why I say 4%, but I guess it's better to say 6,800 acres, but there's where I'm at. I want the thing passed. I'd love to pass it today, but I want to make sure if we passed it today, that somehow we go back to the 6,800 acres, either within the month, 2 months, or whatever. I want 6,800 acres. I don't want 35,000 acres. I want 6,800 acres, but I'm ready to get this thing passed. And because once this is done, we have other things to work on. And it might be the battery stuff that you're talking about right now. But you know, if you're saying we can't get to 5,000, over 5,000 because of the grid, it won't handle it. So I mean, we really can't go over that if we passed it today, but then we can go back and work on changing it to the 4% or the 6,800 acres, correct?
Yeah,
'Cause
I did,
my whole thing is I want it down to the 6,800 acres.
We've only got 4,080 signed up, so let's just start with that.
So you're my attorney.
you have a decision to make. If you pass it today, you're passing it at your
It is.
20% as is.
If you let me speak, can I say
No,
something?
no, thank
Yeah,
you,
this
thank you.
See, this is tough for me.
I know.
I mean, it really is, because we've
It's
dealt with
been
it
tough
for a
on
long
everyone,
time.
and I want everybody to understand that. As many people as we have against it, we have for it. This has been a tough, now listen, let me speak. This has been a tough project for us. It really has. It's been complicated.
Yeah, I mean, I've been yelled at, I've been cussed at. And no, it's not the all. What it is I'm not the owner of the property. Not the one that signed the lease, I'm the one that has to regulate it. If the farmers don't sign the lease, we're not sitting in here right now going over this. You know, and there's where one of the things are. You know, I don't sign the lease, I regulate. That's my job. And I'm gonna do my job. People can yell at me, they can say whatever they want to, you can go on social media. I do my freaking job. I don't care what anybody has to say. I do my job and I work and take time away to read everything and go through all of this. I'm ready to have this passed because I've seen the meetings that they've held with the planning commission. And honestly, I don't even think they should go through what they went through because they're in the same position I am. I'm not getting money. I'm not getting paid $1,000 to $1,400 per acre to have the panels put on there. That's only thing I receive is tax revenue to give these workers that we have in here more money and be able to provide the services that the county deserves. That's my job.
So what's, sir,
Actually, it'll be more tax revenue, so.
that's enough. What do you wanna do? Just wait, sir.
I really dread sending it back.
It's gonna
Because
go
if I,
back no matter.
because if,
Right.
no, if we
It goes
pass
back
it,
if
it
you make
doesn't
a
go back.
change.
If we
If
make
we-
a change, it goes back. And the only thing, if we send it back, the only thing that they can change, and I want everybody to understand this, the only thing they can change if we send it back for the 6,800, that's the only thing I believe they can vote on, correct?
That's my understanding.
So if people want to call them and complain about setbacks, people want to call and complain about anything else, you cannot do it because that will not be changed. The only thing that will be changed would be the acreage if we change this. Then it's 45 days that they have, right?
Correct.
And if it's not changed within the 45 days, then the 6,800 acres actually takes effect, correct?
Correct.
But if we adopt it today, then it's done.
If we adopt it today, it's done with the 20%, which we have.
Unless we take it back.
And the problem with taking it back that I see is, are we gonna continue to have these problems? Everybody I've talked to, the biggest thing has been the acreage. That's been the biggest thing, is the acreage. Then we start all over again.
Yeah, you mean reject every section
start
that
all
was
over
presented?
again.
You start the entire process over.
And everything that I've looked at, people that I've talked to, the biggest thing has been the percentage on acreage. That has been the biggest thing. I know they did, but that's.
Come on, guys,
the
come on,
place
let's
that
talk.
I'm at, is the acreage.
There is a compromise that could be listened to. I've talked to a number of folks.
So this is
Sir,
what-
just,
yeah,
hang on, let's try to figure this out.
so there's where I'm at.
Danielle, we're so glad you're here today and sorry Mr. Brook couldn't be here, but he has some time off and, we appreciate you filling in. So I'm understanding that the valuation of a property that we were wanting to put in has never been tested in court, and that's why it's being denied,
Sir, let us talk, please.
I only reviewed what the plan commission minutes said in that regard. I didn't do research on whether that has been taken to court or not. I have not
that
done that.
Mr. Brooks said it had not been tested yet. That's what he feared. How do we, and then we could be liable, then we might have to make up the difference of the property.
Well, here's my thing, Sherry, is what, I don't want any other changes except for the acreage, to be honest with you. That's the only change that I want to see is the acreage. That's it. But I also don't want to go through all this stuff again.
I understand, yeah. I can't go 6,800 though. At one time I could, but it's just, not doable for me. 3,500 I could live with, not happy about it, but we need, to keep some people happy who have signed up for 4,080 acres. And maybe they might not be happy. We went to,
You're on 34, I'm on 68. And we can only do 5,000.
Would you consider 5,000?
I'll do 5,000. If that's all we can do,
yeah,
I'm good with the 5,000, but then we would have to send it back for the 5,000, right?
Correct.
Or I can put it in the minutes. Once we reach that, we go back.
And if the 5,000 is put in the minutes, we do it now. Can they go over the 5,000 without coming to us?
Well, I think they'd have to,
After,
To the planning commission,
so you'd be notified, and then that would trigger if you wanted to make an amendment, you could do it at that time.
or we
But
could,
if you pass
or we
it,
could do it with this in the minutes today, but then go back and change the acreage.
when we get to that.
I don't wanna go over 5,000 acres. I'll go with 5,000 acres. I do not wanna go over 5,000
I've
acres.
got questions kind of financially related, but potentially leads into a legal issue. And I don't know the answer to it. She's probably more apt to be able to answer that question. I wasn't aware of all these changes, the acreage and all this stuff. So that's the reason the question comes up now, where I would have asked you sooner. My question is, or concern is that if it's adopted today and within the minutes to go back and change the acreage, if for some reason a company comes in and files a petition or an application to do something greater than the 6,800, are we obligated at that point, or are we in the middle of a lawsuit because we can't stop because our current ordinance allows for that? Or can we stop them just because it's in the minutes? I don't know the answer to that
We
question.
may be obligated at that point, once they apply.
no, that's
That
what,
could be a potential problem.
so if you pass the ordinance today, the legal answer is there is nothing stopping them from coming in and doing that. Because your ordinance as it would stand is there. Now, you have in your minutes that if you want to unilaterally at any time come in and change it, you can bring it back before the commission, you guys, and start that process to change it. But as it stands today, it would be 20%, and a company could come in, make that application, and start that process.
Would you agree with that, Ms. Bowen?
Okay, so there's two things here. You have a moratorium in place, as I understand, till the
Correct.
31st.
Mhm.
So, you're protected until the 31st unless you extend that in order to get this ordinance passed. They have, in the ordinance, it's listed specifically 35,000 acres. So, I mean, you could do it one of two ways. You can pass it today and then make an amendment and send that amendment back to the plan commission and have them change it. Or you can just reject this line item and suggest the 5,000 or 6,800 acres and send that back to the plan commission and have them hear it at their January 4th meeting, which is 45 days from now. Which
So
is
we-
exactly
said.
45
So we
days from
can,
now.
so we can pass it today with an amendment from the 35,000 to the 5,000, correct? And send it back to them?
Yeah, if you, any change you
Yes.
make today goes back to the
To
plan
them.
commission for that change.
but
But we can pass everything else, but amend that and send it back to them, correct?
Correct, that's the only issue that would go back to them.
So,
however, though, if we've already got 4,080 acres signed up, this would stop someone coming and knocking on our door and saying, we want to come.
it's not gonna stop them from knocking at the door.
Well, I don't care.
They'll still knock at the door and then they'll try to get this and that changed. Sherry, if you remember right, we come in, we had this issue with, windmills.
I would recommend that you, this is my professional opinion, that you extend the moratorium until this is passed, because once that moratorium expires and you have that lag in there of those days until the commissioners can come back and pass that, that old ordinance or the current ordinance is in effect on the acreage, and an application could be filed by the solar facility, and they are now vested under that old ordinance for 3 years.
I agree. If we're gonna send this back, then we need to increase the moratorium
Yeah, we've already
until-
got that prepared if you guys send it back.
until the day this is all passed.
And I don't wanna wait 45 days if we send it back. How soon can the planning commission have a meeting to go over? Cause I don't wanna wait 45 days.
So we don't typically have a meeting in December, so we don't have a regular,
Could have a special meeting.
we could have a special meeting. I could talk with Mr. Wisely about setting up a special meeting. You know, we have to have legal notice and things like that in place, so it's at least 2 weeks.
Okay.
I think before we could have a special meeting, if we can get enough folks for a quorum to do that.
We have a meeting on the 4th, which probably too soon, then our next meeting is the 18th.
December 18th is you?
Yep.
Okay. I can check with Mr. Wisely today. You know, this week is a holiday week, unfortunately, so we lose a little bit of time. But I will do my best to see what I can get set up with the rest of the members, and try and get a special meeting going. Because as Cynthia said, the next plan commission meeting is exactly 45 days from today. And that's if we have quorum that day. Things can always happen, so.
Something happens, we could extend the moratorium.
And as Cynthia stated, it would be best if you extended that moratorium until this is passed.
And
But also, remember, if something happens, they can't get a quorum. After 45 days, it passes anyway, correct?
Correct,
Right.
if they don't take action on it.
right, so.
Okay, okay.
And that's the only, since that's the only thing that we're sending back, that's the only thing that they can change, correct? They
Only
can't go in,
change
like,
that they can
people can't be calling them up and saying, hey, you need to fix the setbacks, you need to do this.
make.
They can't go in and do anything else except that, correct?
If this is
I
their
will not-
amendment,
If that's our
I do
amendment.
not have my legal book in front of me to double check. I don't have my law book in front of me to double check to make
Yeah,
sure.
cause I don't want all those people to start getting all the phone calls and all that, cause I mean, we've had quite a bit of them.
Let me just double check. I can
Can't-
look it up.
Danielle, can't we just approve the amendment as presented by the planning commission with the exception of, section 8, number B, land use limitations? Can we
I-
do it that way?
I think so, and I double checked with John this morning because I assume that might be something that came up, and that's his understanding as well.
If that's the understanding, I will make the motion that we do that with the change to 5,000 instead of 35,000.
Second,
So we have a motion and a second. You guys have all that?
no, I don't.
James made the motion, Sherry seconded to accept all the amendments to this, regarding the zoning ordinance for solar energy, with the exception of section 8, B, which is land use limitations. And the maximum number of acres devoted to all solar farms under panel is limited to 5,000 acres. you have it? You guys good? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Ms. Reagan,
No,
Ms. Henry.
Yes. Okay,
So if
thanks.
you could get with Mr. Wisely, let us know. Thank you.
All right, next we'll go to, resolutions, resolution number 2023-026, allowing public defenders to have key fobs to access courtrooms. Danielle?
So this is an issue that the Public Defender Board and staff has had for quite some time. There were several discussions over the weekend on Friday. It's my understanding that I think we may have made some headway by getting it on the agenda. So at this time, I'd ask that we table this till the next meeting. I think, Emily is going to work with Kelly, and Emily's talked to some of the judges, and we may have a resolution in the next week or two to this matter. So if we could just table this and give us a little bit of time, we can hopefully get it done for you guys.
I'll make a
Number
motion to table it.
Change,
second,
021.
021.
Oh, I thought you sent me that text message. I thought you said 26.
I, yeah,
Thank you.
six,
She had two.
So it is six?
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion to table. Sherry, you seconded, correct? Roll call, please.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Ms. Reagan,
Yes,
Ms. Henry.
Yes. Next is department heads or elected officials.
Good morning, Carrie from County Highway. I gave Denise the paperwork. Nate from Asphalt Materials would like to extend our contract for the emulsion. We did this back in 2019. You guys approved it and signed for it for years of 20 and 21. So, if you agree to this, it would lock in the price for 24 that we currently have.
Which I think is a great thing to do
yeah.
with
So
the
moved.
prices going on.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the request and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Ms. Reagan,
Yes,
Ms. Henry.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners.
Any other department heads or elected officials? Okay, you guys, all received your monthly reports or weights and measures monthly report. Next, we have, payment of claims of $1,121,812.42.
so move.
Second.
We have a motion to pay the claims in a second. Roll call, please.
King,
Yes.
Ms. Reagan,
Yes,
Ms. Henry.
Yes. Okay, next we have public comment. I'll remind everybody, you have 3 minutes to speak. Please limit your time to, 3 minutes.
Danielle, are you keeping time or?
Danielle, will you keep time?
Got it.
you have the list.
Yes.
The people in the hall that's having their discussion, if they could move down.
The first name is Robert, Cogster. Okay. Next is Linda Hanson.
Good morning, Linda Hanson. I'm spokesperson for the League of Women Voters. And at this point, having passed this as it stands, with that one exception, we just want to thank you for all of your work and the considerations of all of the comments that you've had.
Thank you. Next is Robert Schroyer.
Robert Schreier, 7110 East Centennial. I started my thoughts today on being dazed and confused, and it's going real well at that. I've attended a lot of county commissioner meetings over the last 40 years, and this is, I'm just confused on this one. I know when one of the three of you up there put your name in the hat to be a county commissioner, the first question I asked, are you prepared to spend $1.5 million every 2 weeks? And you looked at me like a deer in the headlights. but that number has increased considerably since then. So a lot of weight is on your shoulders. My question that I'm confused on, not an opinion, but confused on, is if some business comes to Delaware County wanting to make widgets, and we generally welcome them with open hands. But as I understand, with the solar people, there's a $2 million liability policy they've got to keep up, 125% bond that they've got to keep up to clean up the operation if they leave town, and only so big that they can actually grow. I don't know if commissioners have that kind of restrictions on other widget companies or not, because the solar people are aiming to make money making widgets, which is electricity. As far as agriculture goes, which I've been into for many, many years, the big bang for the buck is the wind generators. Other than an access drive and where the windmill actually sets, is all the ground that's taken out of production. The set aside ground around your solar panels is absolutely worthless ground. It's not large enough to do anything with the size machinery we're using anymore. And I just don't, even making hay would not be practical for most people unless they were a little hobby farmer. The windmill people, when they were here many years ago, they were looking at the substation that's just west of DeSoto, Indiana, which is close to the county highway garage. I made a speech before you turned them down, was the fact that the farm that you own has enough room in it to put 2 windmills up, which would mean direct payment to the county every month. But instead, we got a shooting range there, and there was no notification to any of the adjoining property owners that the shooting range was going to go in. I just wonder what the expenses are now for the shooting range to maintain it and the ammunition that's shot every day.
Your time's up, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Taylor? John Taylor? Thank you.
Morning. John Taylor, 305 South Hutchinson Avenue, Muncie, Indiana. I was also on the study committee. A couple things, when I spoke at the Plan Commission meeting, I suggested an increase in the setback. And for me, and I was unclear in what I intended was a larger setback around residents, because that's where they are going to be living and where they would see solar panels. And a lot of people don't want to see them. So I suggested a larger setback around residents. So I know that the vote's already gone through, and that's not something that's probably going to be changed, but that was my intention, was just a larger setback around the residents. The property lines don't have feelings, people do. So that's where I was coming from on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your service to that committee.
Eric Bear or Bar?
Fair. I'm a resident of Delaware County, have been for over 40 years. As well as being a resident in the rural Gaston area, I have 2 small businesses in Gaston. And one thing I would encourage you guys to consider is the dwindle down effect of what removing some of that farm ground will do to people such as myself. My fabrication business relies heavily on agricultural. So does the co-op, obviously, in Gaston. As you remove that farm ground, that dwindles down. My employees suffer. That removes 5 patrons to the Gaston establishments for lunch every day. The co-op will also be affected. That removes all their patrons, their employees from also patronizing the gas station there in Gaston, as well as the amount of fuel that they buy, as well as the fuel that the farmers will no longer be buying in Gaston. It's not just a matter of an eyesore, which I feel that is an eyesore. When I sit in my living room and I watch the sunset, that's no longer gonna happen if these solar panels are put in. I'm going to sit and look at a black wall of panels and fence. A lot of, pro people come up and I've yet to hear one that this stuff is gonna be in their backyard. I've yet to hear that in the meetings that I've attended. The setbacks are important. It just is, I don't know where any of you guys live, but I assure you that you guys wouldn't want this in your backyard. If you bought a piece of property at X dollar amount, you do not want that to be changed, just as you would not want a salvage yard or anything else in your backyard. I can't take my automotive business and set it up on farm field just as a solar panel company should not be able to do that. There's proper areas for those things. Farm ground is not one of them. But like I said, the biggest thing for me is the dwindled down effect. It's going to pay a role on, I'm a small business. I have 5 employees and they will all be affected in some way by it. The other thing I asked to consider is the ethics of this company. They tried to come in, and you guys said, you know nothing about these batteries, all this stuff. Is that something you as an individual would do business with? If I came in and tried to talk you into signing a contract and then slid all this stuff in underneath it, is that a company you would still continue to do business with? Because I don't feel like it is on a personal level. If you hired a contractor in to work on your home and they came in and slid in a bunch of stuff under the rug, you're gonna sue them. And that's exactly what's happening here, but nobody's held them accountable for that. They try to slide all this in underneath the rug on all of us residents. And as a business owner, there's nobody in their right mind that would continue to do business with such a thing like that, especially with such a large thing at stake here. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Sue Whalen? Sue Whelan? Anybody raising their hand out there? Okay. Kelly Watson? Kelly Watson? Sue Arrington?
I'm Sue Arrington. I live at 3400 West Brook Drive in Muncie. First of all, I'd like to thank you for taking this step after a long delay. It begins to put Delaware County on the route for a better future. However, I think there are a couple of flaws in what you have just voted on. One, I have a question on the acreage that you're settling on. Is that going to allow for landowners in other parts of the county to be able to take advantage of having solar panels, or is this just enough for the Gaston area? So I couldn't tell from the discussion. Secondly, the 500-foot setback that you have from neighboring residences, I think is a problem. In that it, as an earlier speaker said, it doesn't leave enough room to actually use that land profitably. And it really is quite different from the state standard is. It's not a requirement, but it's a recommendation that the state legislature passed in 2022. And I'll tell you what that is. For the property line, the standards that are not more restrictive, directly or indirectly, than the default standards outlined in IC 814210. And that is that the property line for any non-participating property is at least 50 feet. We've got 100 feet. And it's also saying that they measure the solar panel distance from the panel, the closest panel to the residence, to the nearest point on the outer wall of the dwelling located on a non-participating property is at least 250 feet. So they're not measuring from property line to property line, it's from facility to, dwelling. Now, I bring this up because the state in this past, the legislature in this past session, passed another bill to incentivize counties to become solar-ready, counties. And they've set it up, it's already, taken effect. It's in the Indiana Office of Energy Development, Commercial Solar.
3 minutes.
And, I think it would be good to take a look at that to see how far off we
Thank-
are from
thank
being
you.
able to take advantage
you.
of state incentives.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff Stevens? Jeff Stevens?
Hi, my name is Jeff Stevens. I live at 19401 North Jonesboro Road, Gaston, 47342. I have lived at this address for 60 of my 66 years. God willing, I will live there till the day I die. My family and I made a decision 3 years ago to enter into an agreement to put solar panels on our property. I counseled and consulted with the people most affected by this decision. My wife, my children, and their families. The project will surround my home and one of my daughter's homes. We didn't reach our decision out of spite, out of competition, nor to injure or devalue the property of our neighbors. And we made this decision independently and not in collusion with anyone else. We, like many farm families, have invested millions in farmland assets. We have the right to decide how to use these investments for our benefit. We, just like our neighbors, have a right to enjoy our property as we see fit. This right ends at our property line. I do not expect to tell anyone what they can and cannot do with their property. Their right should not be prioritized and held to a different standard than our right. I come here to ask two things, and these are probably moot points as we've heard. Number one is to rescind the 500-foot setback from opposing property lines. An example of this overreach is, suppose I have a 40-acre tract of land surrounded by neighbors not wanting or willing to allow panels near their property, but is contiguous to another tract that I own. A 500-foot strip around 3 sides of a 40-acre field will allow only 6 acres to be eligible for solar panels. Do the math. This eliminates 34 of the 40 acres. And I'm sure this is by design to negate the project. At worst, companies will be unwilling to invest in Delaware County and drive them across county lines. I certainly agree there should be setbacks from neighbors' homes as Marta proposed. A setback from their property line could be a mile or more away from their homes. A second point I ask of you is to make a decision and move on. This can has been kicked down the road long enough. Lance?
Thank you. Cheryl Swingley?
Good morning. I just want to thank all of you for having open communication with myself and some other members of a group that I've been working with. We very much appreciate that. And we appreciate the hard decisions that you've had to make. I would say in connection with there being more than one issue at hand, that setbacks is a serious issue. Primarily, it's been the proponents for solar who have tackled that issue. And we have not flooded you with emails because we know what you've been enduring. So when you say you heard most from the number of acres to be put in to solar, I think you should also take seriously that there just as many people who are very concerned about the 500-foot setback from property lines, which is equal or maybe more than what's required of CAFOs. No, okay, I stand corrected. So, you know, that's a serious concern, as Mr. Stevens indicated, that, if he had a 40-acre plot, he could only plant or have 6 acres. I guess I have a concern too. Who's gonna take care of this, property around the solar? Because I'm kind of under the impression that that setback is not owned particularly by anybody because it's a law. I mean, who's responsible for that? Then finally, I would like to point out that all the leases, as they were signed, were recorded in the county clerk's office. So I don't know what kind of reports you get from the county clerk about who's doing what in our county, but I'd recommend that perhaps you start asking for a monthly report of who's filed lease information or property use information. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Next is Daniel, I'm gonna screw this up, Straka?
Yep. Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Daniel Straka. I'm from the Land and Liberty Coalition. We're a statewide organization that advocates for private property rights as well as renewable energy development. You know, I've been to a lot of these counties, been to a lot of these meetings across the state of Indiana. And honestly, I haven't seen in my work, I haven't seen a county with more egregious ordinances against private property rights than I have seen here today in Delaware County, and it's quite a shame. You know, the 5,000 feet acreage cap, the 500-foot setbacks from property lines, those infringe on every individual's property rights within Delaware County, whether you're a participating landowner or non-participating landowner. As a gentleman before me said, you know, if a company came in and decided that they wanted to build widgets, or if they wanted to put in a new housing development or a new business district, what would the restrictions on those be within this county? You know, I know in some cases in this county, there's like a 250-foot setback for agriculture, being near a like a school or hospital. You know, what I'm asking for, and I realize now it's a little bit too late, is that you remove that 500-foot setback, that you increase the amount of acreage that you allow people in your county to use. As I said, I've been to many counties across the state. Our organization has touched 70 of the 92 counties across the state of Indiana, and we haven't seen anything like this before. This is a complete violation of an individual's property rights, and I encourage you, as some of you have done during Plan Commission meetings, to go back and look at that again. Look at the acreage cap, increase it, allow this county to be open for business, and allow your residents to use their land as they please. Thank you for your time.
Christina Wheeler?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me all right? Okay. My name is Christina Wheeler. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Bose, McKinney & Evans in Indianapolis. I've spent the last 25 years of my law career almost exclusively on energy law, public utility law, and government law. I represent Invenergy, and I might get booed down for that, but at the end of the day, I want to make you aware of a few things, and I hope to be in further communication with your counsel about these things. I was the general counsel at the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission for 7 years. I was vice president and legal counsel of the Indiana Municipal Power Agency, or IMPA, for another 5 years. And I've been in private practice for several years now. This is a very discreet and difficult area of law. I want to thank you
for your efforts. This isn't fun, and no matter what you do, somebody's gonna be unhappy with you. And I appreciate your dedication and your time. But that said, I think you're a little bit off track and want to make you aware of the biggest concern I have of several. The first is, when it comes to Invenergy's Meadow Forge solar project, there is already a signed economic development agreement that every commissioner that's sitting here looking at me today has put their signature on. And there is a tax abatement agreement, and there is a decommissioning agreement, and there is a road use agreement. All of these things have already been approved. I think it is wholly within your authority to regulate future solar projects that come down the pike. Where I think you are respectfully off track is when someone has a contract with you that says, quote, you will act in good faith to support the project, and you change the rules of the game mid-project, when my client has spent millions and millions of dollars developing it. I don't think the law is gonna support you in that. I urge you, when this comes back to you, to consider putting language in the ordinance that clarifies that this applies to projects that have not been impacted and approved by the county in some way already. It's like I sign a deal with you and you renege it because you've changed your mind. The law just doesn't let you do that if I've done nothing wrong. And we haven't done anything wrong, and we haven't lied to anyone. These are things that have been in front of the county for more than 2 years now. And I understand people are super, super emotional about private land rights. The other thing I want to note to you is, we aren't talking about CAFOs.
Time's up.
We're talking about
Thank you.
public utilities.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ryan Richards.
Brian Richards, 10191 West, 1200 North, Gaston, 7342. Spoke a few different times. Got something here that was sent to me about, I was told a lot of times that it doesn't affect your food supply. Got a report, 180 bushel corn on 3,300 acres. You have a potential loss of 22,572,000 boxes of cereal, 153,252 six-packs cans of soda, 19,602 pounds of sweetener, 1,663,200 gallons of ethanol, 10,395 pounds of dried distiller grains. Second, they call it a solar farm, but as a farmer, it's not really, they're really not a farm. We take our grain to an elevator, which takes it to somewhere else, that takes it somewhere else for this to be wherever the end user is. They are farming, and they are going ahead and they are taking that electricity and putting it straight on the grid. There is no, so in my mind, they are a corporation. They are a business, which is not zoned for business out there. So that means that I should be able to go out and lease 3,600, 4,000 acres, and I could build a cereal plant right in the middle of it, farm the ground around it, take that grain and put it into my cereal, and I could send that out. Then you can't say that I'm a business. It just don't make any sense. Just because they can call it a solar farm, they are not farming. It is a business. Said my son's 10th generation. farming. And our family, and I just want him to be able to his grandkids to be able to farm. And you allow, it's like you said, you're gonna allow solar panels next, and the next thing's gonna be battery tanks, and the next thing's gonna be something else. I can get 100% efficiency out of my ground. Solar is 28% efficient.
Thank you, sir. Next is Harold King.
Hello, Harold King, 18300 North, 850 West, Gaston. September 28th, 2021. In this meeting on video at, I think, 13 minutes, 45 seconds in, John Schroeder from the energy company complimented Marta Moody that it was such a pleasure to work with her to develop that solar ordinance. And the reason it was a pleasure is because almost everything in there was everything solar wanted, and no protection for the 99% people that were not going to have gains. I commend you for taking time and listening to people. I don't envy what you went through the last year or two. You know, one of the most vibrant cities and counties in Indiana is Fort Wayne and Adams County. No one accuses them not being pro-business, open for business, and they have probably the most restrictive solar ordinance in the state. It protects their citizens. I appreciate what they've done. One of the things that every governmental agency is looking for is money. Stephen Miller, a professor at Michigan State, did a study. You take solar and all the other taxes you're going to lose, and at the end of 30 years, solar is a net loser. It will not play out to your advantage economically. And when this all ends, some farmers are going to be holding a bunch of useless solar panels. Appreciate your time. I appreciate your work, listening to people, and appreciate the accommodations you're trying to make for the people. So thank you.
Thank you. Tim Nickum.
Hi again, Tim Nickum. I just wanted to say that, a little over a year ago, I, along with 8 other people, volunteered to be on the Solar Study Committee. And I did that because I really wanted to make Delaware County a place that I could continue to be proud to live, and hopefully most of my kids would live here. So you can imagine, after 8 months of contentiousness, in which we really didn't agree on anything to start with, to come to a level of compromise, like I explained to you earlier with the 2% cap, was quite an achievement. And then in the Planning Commission, to just have everything that was related to protections of the citizens to be wholesale thrown out with no discussion from the Planning Committee, no questioning, why do you want to throw that out? With excuses being made that we've never seen a property value guarantee work. We've never seen it here. We've never seen it here. Copies were given to you. We have an attorney. Don't we have any imagination in this county? I believe we do. I know you guys, you have to. You had the foresight to put together the committee to begin with. I don't understand why there was just no effort to, let's explore this possibility. Let's protect our citizens from giant companies coming in and changing their quality of life. When you look at the program that was put together, the Muncie, Delaware Community Plan, that is part of the mission there, is to protect the quality of place, says it over and over again, in the county, as well as the city. But I just can't express to you, I went home and I felt, what's the point? And then I realized it's not about me. It's about all these people here hundreds of more people that couldn't be here today because of various reasons. And that's why I'm still here today, just to talk to you that these common sense protections for the citizens, I really wish that you would consider that. And there does seem to be one thing that I agree with a lot of people that I talk to that want solar panels, and that is community solar. That was not discussed in our meetings. It was not brought up. It was not even an option. I'm not sure that we really even knew what that meant exactly, but there is a difference between industrial scale solar and community scale solar. Community scale solar seems to have widespread support from both sides. We put it on a brownfield. We put it on the old Warner Gear site. We put it on the old King Ford site. We put it on the old Frank's Foundry site. There are companies that will come in, I believe, and do that. But we as a county have to put in the work to entice them to do that and set out the rules that we need to have them do that. That's going to save a way of life for a lot of people who live out in the country. And it could be still meeting the goal of mitigating climate change, adding useless pieces of ground that have been useless my whole life, 60 years. I never remember a building standing there. Maybe put them back on the tax roll. So I don't believe it's too late. You guys make the rules. If you could consider doing something like that, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cody Light.
I'm Cody Light, and you guys really need to think about the solar ordinance. I know we've been, 2 years? Been a lot of negative stuff come out. And people want to talk about property rights, all right? I'm a beginning first generation farmer. I have about 30 acres. Would you guys let me build a 5,000 head hog barn 50 feet from my property line? Would you, wherever Sue Arrington went, would you be okay with that? You are one of them that want to talk about property rights. Where is my right as a landowner? Property rights go in both directions to protect both parties, and that is in the planning guide. I don't remember what it's called exactly, but it's a planning guide that our planning commissions are supposed to look at to write zoning laws. Property rights are meant to protect both individuals, not give one property owner the right to negatively affect other property owners. The property value guarantee, Mr. King, sorry to call you out. That has been one of our big pushes also with the acreage cap, because for most people in this room that's going to be affected by that, their property is their home is their biggest asset. And I think the three commissioners would agree with that. For most people that don't own a business, that aren't a farmer, that aren't a corporate farmer signed up in this solar project, their property is their biggest asset. So why can't we guarantee those people the right that their property is going to be guaranteed? Because that's also going to cause you guys to lose tax revenue that you guys can't see. And it was said at the Baker Tilly report, and one of the developers wanted to say you guys were going to get, I think it was like 16 million new tax dollars. I would highly encourage you guys to re-review that county council video, because Baker Tilly came in and that tax for the tax abatement, that was not true. I would really encourage you guys to look that back over. And one other thing I have an issue with, one of the persons that sat on that study committee, you know, most rumors, 90% of a rumor in a small town is truth. One of the individuals that sat on that study committee, it has been said, has signed their ground up for solar. If that is true, I surely hope that they filed something with the county stating that, because I don't know about you three, but to me, that is a huge, huge conflict of interest. And I hope you three think that too.
Thank you. Victoria Gasaway.
State my address.
Just your name.
All right, Victoria Gasaway. Thank you for this time today.
I want to start by saying almost 20 years ago, my family was approached by a solar company wanting us to sign up our land in a land lease. So when I hear you sitting up here saying, let's hurry up and get this done, we've been working on this for almost 2 years. I hope you understand that there are residents in your community that have been battling this for longer than that. If we went back up, so the federal government, how did we end up here? Our federal government issued an executive order calling for vehicles to be zero emissions by year 2035, thus increasing the need for electricity and reducing the need for ethanol production. Farmers were then faced with a very difficult task. And I've heard you say, Mr. King, it would help if the farmers would quit signing the land up. I mean, that would, wouldn't it? But do you understand that those land leases, we cannot, as a farmer, you cannot compete. The average land lease in Delaware County is around $250, $230. How can you compete with a solar company that can come in here and offer you $1,000, $1,200, $2,000 an acre? It's a no-brainer, right? You sit there and you think about it and you're like, I don't have to do anything and sit back and sign on the line and I can get my $1,200. So here we are in Delaware County and we have issued an abatement. And I understand that you are not our fiscal agent, but that's the driving force behind you accepting this into our county. However, when I asked 3 different county council members, will we be net negative or net positive at the end of this abatement? Nobody knows. And when we go back and we review the Baker-Tilly report, everybody seems to be misled by that information as well. An ERA within Delaware County on prime farm ground, even subprime farm ground in Delaware County, is better than a lot of land throughout the United States. So please keep that in mind as well. Per the DM Together plan, the land that is in question for the solar development falls into an area that is under high to highest demand for housing and strong to strongest demand for the housing market. Does this sound like an area that falls into an ERA, an area that needs to be revitalized? No, it doesn't. But because we found a little loophole, Mr. Bookout found a loophole that our taxes are not at cap. No, ag land is not at cap, and we do that so that farmers can afford to farm the land. Sorry. There was an abatement application for the Meadow Forge. The question states, please describe in detail any environmental, real or potential impacts, discharges, nuisance, contaminants that this project or the production project will generate. Invenergy states, none in capital letters. The project will include meadow grasses, which will aid in drainage of nearby area, yet in a land lease produced by Invenergy for their Lone Oak Solar Project in neighboring Madison County. Line item 7.4 states, in no event shall,
That's it, ma'am. Thank you very much.
go look at that land lease.
Thank you.
I will make a statement as far as the council. It's a whole new council except for 2. I mean, everyone is on the council now.
I spoke to us 2
Right.
sitting and 1
Yes.
former.
Yeah.
None of them knew. Net negative or net positive?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brittany Mock?
Brittany Mock, Gaston, Indiana. I want to thank you guys for working with this. I spoke to Sherry and James last night on Sunday. Thank you for giving me calls back. You know, it's easy for people to get up here and talk about this, but how many of you is your house going to be surrounded by this? Mine is. Where I raise my kids, where I would put thousands and thousands of dollars in this. And I'm not against solar. And for these people to get up here and say, you know, we need to move the setbacks back, which I'm the understanding we are not correct.
Correct.
Okay. So, with that though, I do think that we need to figure out something that we can do to protect the non-participating people, because like Cody said, it's for both people, both sides. And I don't know that probably you even know where I live, but I will not probably be moving the rest of my life. We've created a business there. We've updated our property, who we bought from one of the landowners who signed up his ground. And, you know, had I known that that was in our future, we probably wouldn't have done that. And I have spoke to 2 of the landowners that signed up, and they both told me if they could do it all over again, they wouldn't do it. So if that's the case, I mean, there has to be a way that we can do something to even help them get out of it, or
make it to where they don't want to be here anymore and give the opportunity to somewhere else in the county that, that's not going to directly affect a bunch of people. Because at the end of the day, I don't want to live in a solar prison, as I call it, the rest of my life, because I don't have the opportunity just to move somewhere else and rebuild barns and businesses. I mean, there's no way we would ever come back from that and create the money that we have invested in our property now. And I spoke to both Sherry and James about this yesterday. If we're gonna open up the county for solar, then we need to be lifting the moratorium off for CAFOs too. Because if I drive through the country, I expect to see barns and smell livestock. I don't expect to see solar panels and metals covering our fields. So if it's property rights and that's what it's coming down to, then that needs to be lifted so we can build that and I can make money on my own property. Because to me, that's the same thing. And, the setbacks for CAFOs and things like that are way stricter than what we're doing for solar. So if it's at the bottom line coming down to property rights and people can do what they want on their own land, then the moratorium for CAFOs needs to be looked at and lifted. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that's all we have signed up.
I'll make a motion to recess.
Second.
We have a motion to recess and a second. Ed, will you call the roll?
Mr. King,
Yes.
Ms. Reagan,
Yes.
Mr. Henry.
Yes. We're in recess.